The opinions expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of Eastlink Community TV, its sponsors, or partners.
And welcome inside the Eastlink Community TV sports studio here in Sackville. It is green flag time as we are talking Maritime Pro Stock Tour coming to Eastlink Community TV. And I'm joined by Tim Terry, Tim's Corner. Tim, we bring in the expert, of course. We are going to have 8 races featured here on Eastlink Community TV starting Fridays at 6 p.m. And this Pro Stock Tour, it is so excited to have it on the channel with us, featuring the races from last year. Tim, bringing the stock car here, it's something that it hasn't happened in a long time in the Maritimes.
It hasn't happened in a very long time. Excited to be a part of this and excited to bring it to Eastlink Community TV. You're going to see some great racing action throughout. We're looking back at the 2023 season, always exciting, and get us ramped up for what is to come in 2024 beginning in May. Such
a rich history of stock car racing in the Maritimes. This 8-race circuit, tell us a little bit about it.
So the series started in 2001 as it picked up from NASCAR, and we've grown ever since. We're heading into what would be our 24th season in 2024. And last year we did do 11 races, went to a couple of different venues, went to Speedway 660, returned to Fredericton, went to Petty International Raceway just outside of Moncton, Oysterbed Speedway. Always love going to Prince Edward Island, and that race last year was a phenomenal show. Obviously, Scotia Speed World up the road from us, where we are in Halifax and Riverside International Speedway, which is the mecca when it comes to racetracks in Canada. You get 5 different venues. You've got a lot of drivers that come in. You've got the local guys that want to defend their home turf against the regular Maritime Pro Stock Tour drivers, and then you got those Pro Stock Tour guys that want to win a championship over 11 races. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of drivers that have come through our series. There's some new ones that have come up through the ranks. There's more that are to come this year. It's going to be a fun, not only look back to 2023, but get us excited for 2024.
I've got to hear you and Dylan Langell on the call of this, and you do, it's so informative, and we're learning more and more about these drivers, but the drivers are the stars. Tell us, who are the names and who are the personalities we're going to be watching over the next 2 months?
You hit the nail on the head with personalities. We've got Craig Slanwhite, 3-time Maritime Pro Stock Tour champion, grew up at Scotia Speed World, worked through those ranks to get there from a hobby stock up to the street and the sportsman, and then got to go pro stock racing. You look at a guy like Gary Elliott, Canadian Motorsport Hall of Famer, who's moved down to Nova Scotia the last couple of years, 76 years young, racing one of these race cars. List goes on and on. Nicholas Noggle, Jarrett Butcher, kids that cut their teeth in Halifax. Mike Rogers from New Brunswick, from Moncton, beautifully prepared King competition car. List goes on and on that these drivers, and you get the part-time guys. Ashton Tucker is always potent every time he comes to the racetrack. Ryan Messer, Corey Hall, those guys that might only do 4 or 5 races with us a year, but when they show up, our fans know that they're going to be near the front of the field battling with the Noggles and the Slanwhites and the Butchers and those guys that are here every single week. It's a melting pot of competition. Then you go to the IWK 250, you get a guy like Carson Hocevar that shows up and puts his skills to the test against our guys. Greg Proud from Prince Edward Island, Tanton Woolridge, the rookie driver coming up with Trevor Lamb Racing. There's so many different stories. There's so many different storylines. And we got to see it over 11 races last year, and we saw some pretty darn good racing.
You bring up the Bandolero racing,
yeah,
because it's so important. We cover so much grassroots sports here on Eastlink Community TV. When you're seeing kids come up through Bandolero into Legend and now onto stock car, what is like the feeder system and I guess the minor sports system which would be involved in stock car racing?
So back in the Craig Slanwhite or Gary Elliott day, the Bandolero didn't exist for them. So they would go to a mini stock, a 4-cylinder car, then maybe work their way up to a sportsman and then onto the Pro Stock Tour. With these kids that are moving up now, you think of Gage Gilby's going to be the next one to move up. The Blankhorns, the Butchers, the Noggles, the Eddies, list goes on and on about starting in a Bandolero car, 6, 7, 8 years old. Then they move into a Legend car when they're ready. The power-to-weight ratio between a Bandolero and a Legend car is similar to what they're going to have on the Pro Stock Tour. And it's the biggest training tool that's come along for us in the last 15 years to get these cars and get these drivers on the racetrack. You're going to see that talent because that talent typically is a little more progressive in a pro stock compared to what you would see maybe in a sportsman car or maybe in another car that some of these other drivers might be a little bit older to not have the opportunity to race a Bandolero or a legend car.
Well, it's, you were just talking about the Bandoleros. There's a girl named Haley Bland who cleaned up on the circuit. Tell us a little bit about her.
So she started off racing a beginner Bandolero at Scotia Speed World, raced a couple of years in karts. She starts there. She's moving into a sportsman car this year. So that progression, and who knows where she'll be, whether she goes to a pro stock car or not. Aiden Christensen's a prime example. Aiden went down to Winter Nationals in Florida this year, picked up 2 semi-pro wins against the best drivers in all of North America. He starts in a Bandolero, moves quickly to a legend. If he finds himself in a pro stock, I think he's going to catch on fairly quickly. That's the great thing about our Scotia Speed World program on Friday nights, because you can see those kids, you can see the future of the sport, the AAA per se of the Pro Stock Tour, and you're going to see the future where Cole Butcher and Jarrett and Nick and Dylan and all those guys started out.
Well, you talk about the future of the sport. For a lot of these kids, they're looking up at the ones that have been there, done it, and are still doing it. Craig Slanwhite has 3 times has captured the title, and we're going to be featuring a lot of Craig Slanwhite over this series. Here's a chance to have a conversation with him earlier this week.
Stock Tour champion, the driver from Terrence Bay, Nova Scotia. Please welcome Craig Slanwhite.
So I guess going into 2023 for the three-peat was probably a little more pressure, I think, on me than 22, because it was, I always said that if I got 1 championship, I'd back down full time. Got the 1, everybody said you got to go for 2, so, went for 2 with the expectations that we could get the job done if everything fell in place. Went for 2, got the 2, and then I was really, I'd like to back down from chasing points full time, and then realized that no one's ever done 3 in a row, so that kind of that kind of set the bar higher, put the stress level, I guess, a little bit higher, made me drive probably a little bit different to get that 3rd one, again, because no one's ever done it. So going into 23 was probably, and I didn't let many people know that, it was on my brain, because we all want to win races, but to get that 3rd championship where no one's ever done it was pretty big.
Over 15 years of trying as he burns it down near the beer garden. Over 15 years, Joe, of trying to win this race. And he gets it done here in 2023.
Yeah, that was everything, to be honest. That was a race that, I've won it for many years. I know sponsors and family and crew and fans. I believe there was a lot of people pulling for me to get that IWK 250 because everybody knew what it meant to me. I think I got the first 250 of the Maritime Triple Crown in 08, the second one in 2013. So from 13 to 23 was quite a gap, and you start thinking probably never get it. Something's going to cause us not to get this race. And to actually get the checker flag that night at Riverside was huge.
Thanks again, Craig Slanwhite, for taking the time to chat with us. He captured the 3-peat this year, and we're going to be covering more of the storylines that you are going to be seeing on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour here on Eastlink Community TV. We got more coming up after the break.
Here at Livingston Steel in Summerside, we have AEDs in 2 of our shop vehicles, and as well we have 1 inside the shop, and all of our employees are trained and ready in first aid and CPR. I also like to address to all islanders to encourage you to go out, get your AED training, make sure that you know where they're located in your facilities and in your communities.
Save a heart.love, learn to save a heart.
This program is sponsored in part by the Maritime Motorsports Hall of Fame in Petty-Kodiak, New Brunswick, a museum that preserves and promotes the rich motorsports heritage in the Maritimes. MaritimeMotorsportsHallOfFame.com.
Back here in the studio, we're talking about the Maritime Pro Stock Tour on Eastlink Community TV. Tim Terry joining me as well. And Tim, just before we get into the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, I just want to talk about how you have been flying the flag for maritime racing across the racing world in North America. Your schedule is wild.
It's been fun the last couple of years. Just came back a couple of weeks ago from Florida with NX and US Legend Cars doing their Winter Nationals event and getting to see the stars of the sport. Not only did our drivers represent down there, you get a kid like Brexton Bush, Kyle Busch's son, you get Keelan Harvick, Kevin Harvick's son, and you get to see all this talent that's going to be the future, that's going to race on Sundays with the NASCAR Cup Series in one place. And there's 178 personalities and 178 different stories, right, wrong, or indifferent. But getting to do that, getting to travel across the Maritimes, 50 races a year. Love working with the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Love working with Scotia Speed World, home racetrack, home series. But everywhere else is fun too.
I want to come back to Sunday NASCAR probably in our third segment, but I do want to talk about this season that just has happened that we'll be featuring. Again, 8 races condensed here on Eastlink Community TV, Fridays at 6, the 2023 season. Of course, Craig Slanwhite was the story, but what were some of the storylines and what are we going to be watching for in this season's retrospective?
We keep looking at personalities, and if you follow this series and you follow these teams and these drivers, you get connected with them. Jarrett Butcher the last couple of years has fought really, really hard to win a race in the shadow of his brother Cole, and he's even said that, and the whole team has kind of said, you know, everything is focused on Cole. Jarrett stepped out of the spotlight in a big way this year, won 3 races. The Oyster Bed race we're going to show later on in this season is going to be phenomenal because he absolutely picked the pocket of 2 drivers in front of him and bided his time to get there. Won that first race at Scotia Speed World. He was a story in itself. Obviously, Slanwhite winning the championship is huge. Jarrett Butcher doing what he did. Nicholas Noggle winning at his home racetrack at Scotia Speed World back in June. The IWK 250 is always a great story. Everybody loves going to Petty International Raceway because of the racing it provides at Riverglade. We had a race at Speedway 660, had a couple of extra races at Riverside as well, and they all kind of paint the picture to what we saw going into the Tirecraft 200 season finale, where you had, Craig Slanwhite going for a championship, had a comfortable lead, but you also had, another 20 guys that are going for that last win of the season and trying to get that momentum, and we saw a young kid in Ashton Tucker do what he's done a couple of times, and that's come from the back, and out of nowhere, we don't talk about him for the first 190 laps, and all of a sudden, for the last 10, me and Dylan Langell are saying his name multiple times at the end of it.
Who was the breakout star this season?
It's hard to tell because we had Jarrett Butcher. I think has to be there, has to be in that conversation. Nicholas Noggle is really coming into his own as a driver. I think those two, when we go into 2024, are going to be the 2 big names we watch. Every time Ashton Tucker shows up at a racetrack, he is going to be up front, whether he wins a race or not. He has been the New Brunswick star, and now he's starting to show his muscle on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour as well, winning races in Halifax, winning races at Petty International Raceway, and who knows how much we'll see him, but we'll see what happens in 2024. Tanton Woolridge won the pole for our first Riverside race. You're going to see that later on in this series. He has really come into his own. There's a driver that went from Bandoleros to Legend Cars and moved into Pro Stocks. One of the first to do so on the province of Prince Edward Island, and now he's really starting to show his stuff in late models too.
You bring up the IWK 250, and that is apparently that's the crown jewel of this tour. What is it that makes that race so special?
It turns Riverside, it turns Antigonish, James River into a little town. You have 8,000 to 10,000 people there coming to see this race. This is the closest you're going to get for a race fan to be at a New Hampshire Motor Speedway or go down to a NASCAR race. Our stars are the stars of this weekend. You have the Maritime Pro Stock Tour, and you also have the Sportsman Series, the Mass Sportsman Tour, as well as the Crossroads Legends on Friday night. But it's also a party atmosphere. Thursday is the tailgate party. They practice, they get amped up and excited. And then on Saturday, there's a lot of money on the line. It's prestige. It's the John W. Chisholm Memorial Cup, the Junior Hanley Fast Time for Time Trials, which was introduced this year and will be in a part of the program in 2024. It's that race that everybody wants to win. It's our Daytona 500. The Summer Clash 250 is close as well in Halifax, where those are our 2 major crown jewel events that everybody else is off in the Maritimes. They show up, the spotlight is on us, and they want to win that race, and everybody wants to see who takes that checkered flag.
Well, you bring up Riverside. Ryan Van Orscott grew up in the shadow of Riverside Speedway. He could hear the cars from where he grew up. So we have a chance to take a look at an upcoming feature from another one of our shows, No Ordinary Life, that featured Ryan Van Orscott.
I've always enjoyed watching racing. Grew up on a dairy farm, wasn't able to go to the races, but we could hear them just over the hill. And it was always something I just wanted to do. And once I moved out on my own, it kind of became a reality. I just said, like, hey, let's buy one of these and try it. We needed a lawnmower. That was the first thing we needed. And while on Kijiji, we were looking through, and here's a race car. Long story short, I didn't buy a lawnmower. Everything weighs on the driver. When you read the paper or see a post, or everyone relates right to the driver. In reality, if something fails on the car, it's a full team. If something gains on the car, it's also a full team. If we go out and we win a heat race, we won it. I didn't. When we started, a friend of the family had keys to the racetrack and knew that we had bought a car and knew we had no experience whatsoever. Never sat in a car, and in fact, I had never gone to a race. His first thing was, we have to get you out there, we have to get you practicing, and we just go out on the track for 5-6 hours and make laps and get more comfortable. And we did that for weeks before our first race. Realistically, it's just do it. That's the only way you're going to get better. This past weekend, the last 50 laps of that race, I learned more than I'd learned all year so far. It's my body's able to do is just shut everything out. It's quiet, it's nice. You put the mask on, or in this case, the helmet on, and it's just pure focus on what you're doing. Nothing else matters.
And again, thanks to our friends from No Ordinary Life on that feature on Ryan Van Orscott. And Tim, that is a guy that, you know, again, we talk about Riverside. You heard it from his place, just how close he is to that track.
Him and his team work hard. That's his home racetrack. He gets up to put on a show for his fans there, won a heat race earlier this season, and it's great to see him progress from his Rookie of the Year to now. So
coming up after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about what goes into ensuring that teams are successful and, you know, competitive here on the Maritime Pro Stock Tour. Stick with us. We got more Tim Terry here as we're chatting racing here at Eastlink Community TV.
This program is sponsored in part by the Maritime Motorsports Hall of Fame in Petty-Kodiak, New Brunswick, a museum that preserves and promotes the rich motorsports heritage in the Maritimes. MaritimeMotorsportsHallOfFame.com.
Here at Livingston Steel in Summerside, we have 80s in 2 of our shop vehicles, and as well we have 1 inside the shop, and all of our employees are trained and ready in first aid and CPR. I also like to address to all Islanders to encourage you to go out, get your AED training, make sure that you know where they're located in your facilities and in your communities.
Save a heart, not love. Learn to save a heart.
Tim, thanks for helping me. I'm calling this in the ring, brother. That's
Yeah, this has been fun.
it's this is we're coming down to our final laps here in the this segment here. Again, the Maritime Pro Stock Tour on Eastlink Community TV. It's a retrospective of the 2023 season. We've got 8 episodes, bit of a condensed race, and yourself, Dylan Langell, on most of the calls. Yep. Tim, again, from an outsider's perspective, I mean, looking at this sport, it looks like it takes quite a bit to be competitive. Takes quite a bit even just to be on the track. What goes into a season for these guys?
It all depends on what team you're talking about, because each team has a different way to prep and get ready. But ultimately, at the end of the day, races are won and lost in the shop. It kind of sounds a little cliche, but that work you do from Sunday when you get home and unload the race car till Friday when you load it up to get ready to go to the racetrack on Saturday, that is the prep work, and that is the drive that these teams have to get these cars in, whether it's nut and bolting the race car, whether it's making setup adjustments. If we're going from a Petty International Raceway to a Scotia Speed World, it's a different racetrack, so you have to change the car a little bit. There's those different types of adjustments and different types of things that you have to do to those race cars, and there's a lot of work that is done inside of these race shops, whether it's in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, or whether it's in Moncton, New Brunswick, or the shops that we have in Prince Edward Island with those teams getting ready to go to each race.
We talked about the grassroots level. Yep. We've talked about the pros in the Maritimes. What is going to take for us to start seeing some of these names on a Sunday on Fox for NASCAR?
I think everybody's proud of Cole Butcher. Cole has finished second in the ASA Star Series, which is the American equivalent to what we are doing down here. Obviously, bigger stage and bigger names with Bubba Pollard and Ty Majeski and all these guys. It's that drive to get noticed, and we had the conversation about stick and ball sports. You know, you go through, AAA and Quebec Major Junior, and somebody sees you and they pick you up as a prospect. That's not the system here. You have to work hard. You have to, maybe bring in some sponsor money and meet the right people, be in the right place, and go far. Cole Butcher is definitely doing that. Nicholas Noggle has raced down south. We've seen some of these drivers make that move down there and try to get up there. When are we going to see it? Who really knows? I'd love to tell you that Cole Butcher is going to Cup in a couple of years, but I know his plan is different. And the great thing about Cole Butcher is he is smart and he's calculated. So I'm looking forward to seeing his path. His brother Jarrett here is absolutely lighting it up on the East Coast International Maritime Pro Stock Tour, and excited to see what he can do this year too.
Well, let's talk about this year. 2024 is coming up. Your schedule is out. Yep. We're getting ready for this season. What do you expect out of the 2024 year? I know it's a couple months away, but everything's still brewing.
We don't really know what to expect until we show up to the racetrack the first race. Everybody asks who's going to win the championship. We don't really know. I don't think any of us really know until we come back to Halifax in September. But you're going to see some great racing throughout the Maritimes. 5 different markets, 5 different venues, and 5 unique racetracks to this schedule. Obviously, Scotia Speed World is our home base. We come here 4 times a year. Riverside with the NASCAR Canada Series weekend is going to be big. Then we go back for the IWK 250. Fredericton Speedway 660 is always that one trip that everybody enjoys. Between Fredericton once, Riverglade at Petty International Raceway, and between the race at Oyster Bed Speedway, we only go there once. So these drivers want to win here. Craig Slanwhite will be the first one to tell you he's never won at Oyster Bed Speedway. Donald Chisholm will be the first one to tell you he's never won at Scotia Speed World. It's those races that make it special for us and for a market as well. We go only in once. So if you want to see the East Coast International Pro Stock Tour at Speedway 660, at Petty, at Oyster Bed Speedway, you got to be there. There's a lot of great races. So we touched on the IWK 250 and the Summer Clash, and there's so much to be excited about.
Well, we got excited because we actually got to go under the hood of a car. Mike Ledwich took us out, and it was, I believe, Cole Butcher's car that we had a chance to pop our head under the hood, take a look at the engine, take a look at these tires. Hey, take a look at the whole body. It's completely different from my Hyundai Santa Fe, I can tell you that much. Here it is.
Pretty near in tears. I was just waiting for something to happen.
I'm the race director, so I'm more like the umpire, the balls and strikes. Guys spinning guys out.
Russell Smith Jr. trying to take contact! And Blankhorn gets both of them loose into the lead!
Guys getting a flat tire and sandbagging us for a yellow that they could have pitted. Just overall aggression, starts and restarts, when to throw the yellows, the caution flags, that sort of thing. In contact with the flag man all the time, scorers all the time, tech guys, the guys on pit road relaying us information, the spotters. I listen to all their spotters in one ear and run the race out of the other ear. And it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do, but but you'll learn a lot by listening to others and knowing where the hot spots may be or the potential for it may be, just based on how tight people's helmets are at some points during the race.
Chiseling his way, he started at the back of this field with mechanical issues in his heat.
I like the competition. I like being involved. I'm a very competitive person, and to see what these guys can do on a week-to-week basis, not just the guys that are competing at the front, but the guy that's racing for 12th and 13th every week and is quite content to do that and try and improve to 10th and 11th the next week, and see that progression is really important and exciting to me.
And thanks again for letting us get in the shop, seeing the nuts and bolts of the whole operation. And Tim, there is, man, a little overwhelming for a guy who constantly gets told, hey, you got to check your oil.
It's easier than just picking up a hockey stick and going to play hockey.
Yeah.
Races are won and lost in those shops. Those changes that are made in there are the ones that are ultimately going to get a Jarrett Butcher to victory lane at the end of the day. Those guys have their stuff together, and it happens throughout the Maritimes in so many different race shops as we get ready to go racing on a Saturday.
Oh, well, they're getting ready for the racing on the Saturday. We are getting ready for racing on Friday nights. The retrospective starts at 6 p.m., and we are looking forward to bringing the Maritime Pro Stock Tour to Eastlink Community TV. Tim Terry, good to have you in the studio, my friend. Can't wait to hear you calling the races throughout our coverage here, and best of luck the 2024 season.
It's been a blast, and looking forward to seeing all these races back again on Friday night and reminisce a little bit and then get ready for this 2024 year.
All right, we'll have more with the Maritime Pro Stock Tour on Eastlink Community TV, Fridays at 6. Don't you dare miss it.